Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Angela Constance is a woman hanging on to her position of power by her very fingertips. She had to go on an interview yesterday, which was a bit of a car crash, as she tried to explain the delays and cost overruns of Barlinnie Prison, as well as all the other problems within the prison service, as well as other problems within the justice system. She's a woman for whom every aspect of her job is a sheer failure. Nothing is going right. She's totally incapable of doing the job, and when questioned about it, cannot even tell the truth and just spins the same old party line. And it is getting very tiresome. Even the interviewers are just fed up talking to the SNP now because they never get answers to the questions. They just keep getting spin, deflection, and sometimes outright barefaced lies. Angela Constance is guilty of all three of these, of course, over time. Not necessarily at any one time. I just want to clarify that. But she has a lot to explain, and she's failing to do so. Meanwhile, the Scottish Prison Service is collapsing under the weight of its own failure. Let's have a look at what she said and how bad things are and are going to further get. Here goes. Right, before we get into this, I will say I don't think Angela Constance is the worst MSP that the SNP have. She's one of the few intelligent ones, and she actually had a job before going into politics, which is also unusual for the SNP. She, of course, was, I believe, a social worker, had a degree in so. I think actually she might have even had a master's in social work, social care, that sort of thing. She's a woman who, had she stuck at her original career choice, may well have done a lot of good for people. Certainly more good in the long run than she ever has done by becoming a politician. That's very sad, really. But she might be an expert, as it were, in social care, but she's not an expert, it seems, in justice or in prisons. And yet she's been handed a poison chalice of a prison system collapsing under its own weight, underfunded, under-resourced, with overpopulated prisons, with the new Barlinnie going to be about 3 times the original estimate by the time it's finished, and already out of date and overcrowded. You know, even on the day they hand over the keys and put the prisoners in, it'll be out of date and overcrowded. That's not entirely her fault. That's just bad management generally from the SNP. But it's not a problem that she's bothered getting hold of and trying to do anything about. She's quite out of her depth, I think. Anyway, Angela Constance all over the place with car crash attempt to justify prison mismanagement. Well, she's the one responsible for it, ultimately. The SNP Justice Minister has been told to explain how her government will manage Scotland's prison overcrowding, but her latest attempt has fallen flat with the Scottish Tories and the Scottish people and the people in prison, both sides of the locked door, as it were. Nobody trusts them. Nobody trusts the SNP on prisons or on justice. We've seen that. They own the justice system. No one's ever going to prosecute them for anything. Anyway, Angela Constance has been told her government are guilty of gross mismanagement. Say it ain't so. Say that this isn't another failure from the party of successful failures. Because they go out and they go, right, what can we fail at this week? Let's fail on justice. Yay. You know, and they succeed in failing. That's what they do. It's got to be deliberate. All the decisions they're making are deliberate decisions. They must know they're going to fail. Anyway, the SNP's Secretary for Justice was all over the place during a BBC interview in which she talked through the shambolic rollout of Barlinnie Prison that is already delayed and significantly over budget. We covered it earlier in the week. The budget to build this was 170 million, and they were supposed to start building it this week. It's already ballooned to over 400 million, and they haven't even finished doing the plans yet. This is going to be £500 million, and it isn't going to be finished maybe 10 years after it's due to be finished. That's how bad this is. But hey, you know, what do you expect? SNP. Anyway, this week she came under fire for the jaw-dropping revelation. Here we go. There you go. Look, that the cost of the new building to replace the old and archaic prison has blown up to 400 million from an initial 170 million cost. I didn't know those figures. We did the video Friday, I think. Her latest attempts to demonstrate competence, not a word that the SNP are ever aware of, is it? Anyway, competence within the SNP were met with derision from the Scottish Conservatives, as well as being branded a burning platform, a catastrophic failure, and by those working in the sector, I don't know. The standard of journalism is awful, isn't it? They've missed an entire word out. But we know it's an absolute disgrace by those working in the sector, I think. Scottish Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Russell Findlay, who's already said the SNP government has shown incompetence and squandered public money. Yeah, but not just on justice, on every single thing. Literally every single thing. Has reacted to the latest interview, and he said Angela Constance was all over the place on this. Dangerous overcrowding in Scotland's prisons is a direct result of the SNP's long-term failure to properly fund the service. They've had 17 years. They can't be blaming Westminster for this one. They can't be blaming anything that happened before 2007 for this. And reality, it wasn't great before 2007. I mean, we're going back first Labour administration, really, which is when the problem, if you look at it, that's when the problem started, because they just had this bee in their bonnet about not investing. Labour were trying to do one thing and they really weren't investing in anything else. But it's been compounded, of course, by the 17 years of SNP government. Concerns about the crumbling prison estate have been raised for years, yet nationalist ministers have failed to act. They're guilty of gross mismanagement and must now explain exactly what they're going to do to fix the mess of their own making. There's nothing they can do. They've basically given up. They've already checked out on this. They know they're not going to be in control much longer. And so basically they're going, yeah, just let it tick over. Just tick over till we... And then let it be Labour's problem when we are beaten. Because that's effectively what's going on in their minds. Especially the backbenchers, because they're looking at the Greens and going, oh, God, look, we're still in with the Greens. We're done. We know, and they know. So they're just checking out as well. They're like, you know, it's like that Friday afternoon, isn't it? It's like, yeah, okay, we're in the office. We're not really doing a lot. We're looking at the clock. It's soon be 5 o'clock. We can get out of here, get down the pub, go for a meal, have a curry, you know. And they're doing this from about 2 o'clock. Well, this is the 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon for the SNP government, isn't it? Anyway, inmates are constantly on the edge and it's demoralising for staff, says Theresa Medhurst, the Chief Executive of Scottish Prison Service, who told the BBC that signs of suffering among convicts are often missed due to the strain on officers. Well, they haven't got enough officers. Any officers they have got are stressed, and so they go off making it even worse for the ones they do have. It means the prisoners aren't getting the sort of... I don't know, care and attention isn't the right word, but they're not getting what they need. They're not getting what they are entitled to. And they're being locked up for extended periods of time, which is affecting the mental health of the prisoners. When they do get out, they're then pent up and frustrated. They take it out on each other. The guards get involved. The guards get damaged and hurt and beat. And it just creates a powder keg in a prison because there's no other releases. And that is what happens. And this is down entirely to mismanagement. And ultimately, that is the SNP. It was Kevin McCluskey, who was there from the Justice Scotland, Community Justice Scotland, who described the prison system as a burning platform. Ms Constance said there's a number of actions already in progress. This sounds like a nose grower, doesn't it? A bit of a lie. And addressing the Barlini controversy, she said, we're currently waiting on the final plans. Once we have the final plans, I'll be in a much better position to establish those initial estimated costs and a timetable. They should have been breaking ground on it this month. They haven't got the plans. We've done this video and it is absolutely appalling because it's supposed to be finished by 2025. It's not going to be finished by 2035 at this rate. They haven't even got a timeline for when the plans will come back completed. And as for costs, it's 400 million now. Do you think by the time it's finished, it's not going to be under £500 million just for a prison? It's ultimately terrible. She also told listeners there's certainly the need and scope for bigger conversations about how to manage prisons. Said there's a bigger conversation within government, within Parliament and indeed across the country because ultimately we all want the same thing. Yes, few big prisons, put all the prisoners in there and keep putting people into prison until they learn that crime doesn't pay and that if you go to prison it's a horrible, terrible time. Don't do it. And then certain groups must never ever be let out of prison. We know the groups, the ones that the SNP seem to pander to and indeed are filled with. And I'm looking at you, Michael Matheson, maybe, allegedly. Let's have a look at your iPad, mate. Anyway, there we go. So I'll round off there, come up. But yeah, it's the SNP failure written through their very DNA. Here goes. Now, I can only presume that the plans for Barlini are delayed because somebody suggested they need to build a whole extra wing just to house the SNP. Because once Labour get in next time and they go through all the records, I think that all the truth will come out and Plod will be paying a visit and there'll be a lot of them going to prison. Because I suspect there's an awful lot of crime within that party. Some of it corruption, some of it sexual, some of it very badly sexual. And then there's also the other sort of obvious ones that Cranky and her cronies may well be needing an entire wing to themselves for the terrible things that they've done, allegedly. Anyway, I shall round off there. Thank you very much for watching. Do hope you've been entertained by it on this cold, wet and miserable Monday morning. Well, it is here. Don't know where it is where you are, but it's grey, it's overcast, the rain is coming down and my dog's looking out and going, well, I ain't going out in that. He's a schnauzer, they don't like the water. Anyway, thank you. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Thank you.